Hello and welcome to this tutorial on how to use and run the POLE report generator, aka PRG. This tutorial is going to step through all the phases needed to generate the reports, starting from PLS-CADD. So we're going to look at what it takes to generate the XML file and some pitfalls there, and then walk through all the phases in PRG needed to generate the reports. Now we're going to spend a little extra time in PLS-CADD talking about the XML export because this is a place where things typically cause issues. So we'll take a minute to go through some of the ways to mitigate those issues and show an example of how things go wrong. So with that, let's jump into it. So on the left here, we have the PLS-CADD model that we're going to be using. It's a very simple model. It just has a single M4 structure, and the next and previous structures are modeled just using sticks, so M method 1 structures. If we zoom in, we just see it's a distribution line with 2 wires and a communication wire. So very, very basic setup. So let's take a look over here on the right. We have the Powerline reporting application that was just booted up, and we'll look here on the left. These are all the modules, and we will select PRG. So once PRG loads up, it's going to ask for 2 pieces of information before we can start the process: the primary circuit name and the XML file. So let's give it a circuit name, and then the XML file we need to generate. So let's pop over back to PLS-CADD and go File, Export, XML, and click Save. And this dialog pops up. It's important here, this dialog, it's always going to pop up every time you export the XML, and it's important that you click yes. There are 2 versions of the XML file. In the dialog it says the complete or the condensed version. In order to extract all the information that PRG needs to report correctly, it requires that complete version. So click yes, and in this case the export finished quite quickly, and we see this option to view it with the default viewer, and we'll just click no. So if you want to, you can view the XML file in like a text editor like Notepad or something, but in this case we're just going to click no. So now that the file was created, we'll go back into PRG and then select that PLS-CADD file, the XML file. So now we find it. It says PRG sample.xml. We click open, and we get an error. It says incomplete XML export. The XML file provided is missing the following tables, and we see quite a large list of missing tables. So then we have this note that says please ensure the tables are selected in PLS-CADD file export XML settings. Okay. Now whenever there are issues, PRG detects that there are missing tables. It'll open up this help menu directing you to these instructions on how to resolve an incomplete XML export. Now there are 2 ways to resolve this issue. The first is to download a schema file. So there's this plr.schema, and once you save that, if you load that up in PLS-CADD, it will make sure that the XML file that you generate has everything selected. All the tables will be included on the first output. So this is something that I suggest for large models, something with 100 or more structures. If you want to make sure that the XML file will be compatible with PRG on the very first go, I suggest downloading this schema file, loading it up, and then running the XML. And that'll ensure that all the tables that need to be included will be exported. Now, the second option is to manually select all the tables in PLS-CADD. So this requires you first to export an XML file. If you try to get to this menu, the XML settings, before generating an XML file, it'll give you a warning saying that, hey, you actually have to generate the file before you run this command. So this dialog will not show up unless you previously run the XML file. So in this dialog, this is the second option. You can select all of the tables that you want to be included, and I suggest that you just select every single one of them. You can go and remove the tables that don't appear in the list that showed up the initial error dialog. But we started to analyze this, and the space that you save by selectively choosing which tables you want and which ones you don't is the benefits are negligent. The tables that you need comprise over 90% of the size of the XML file. So by selectively removing the tables that PRG doesn't need, you're only going to be saving about 10% of the final file size, and it really doesn't cut down on the time that it takes to export the XML. So for simplicity, I recommend selecting every table. And just so you can see what this first option looks like, I'll show that process. So if you go File, let's see, Preferences, and Schema File. If you scroll over to the settings and then select the new plr.schema, now when you export the XML, all the tables will be selected. So either option will work fine, but if you want the XML file to be compatible with PRG on the very first go, using the standard schema file will ensure that it has all the tables that it needs. So let's go ahead now and re-export that XML file. Make sure we click yes for the full version, and then here we're going to click no. We don't want to view this with the text viewer. Okay, so let's go back now. Let's go back to the PLS setup blade and reselect that new XML file that we generated. And we can see the size is a bit larger than the previous one. And that notice that there were incompatible tables is gone now, so we have every table that we need. Now we are able to click continue and continue on to the next step. However, there was another invalid setting here. So this is an enterprise specific setting, which for depending on your enterprise, they may require additional fields be filled out before being able to generate a report. So this was just an example of one of those extra fields that was required that we didn't previously define. And now we're able to continue. PRG is going to prompt you with a few dialogues after you click continue. This one in particular is a version issue. So after PLS version, so the next production version after PLS 15.30, this will no longer appear. The next step here is to choose which structures you want to report. If you had 100 structures here, you would be able to selectively choose one or two if you just wanted to generate a report on a couple of them, or in this case, since we only have one structure, it's the only one selected. So we'll just leave that as it is, click continue, and wait for PRG to run some of its additional QC and other checks. In this case, one of the additional checks that PRG will run is a check against the FAA notice criteria tool. In this case, it found that one of the for this structure, the notice criteria was exceeded. If you wanted to view the report, you can click yes, but for now, we're just going to click no. And this report will end up in our final output, so we can view it at that time. Now let's bring this full screen now so we can see everything. And now we're on to the second phase of PRG structure setup. And since we only have one structure here, it's fairly simple, but this table will fill up with all the structures that you have in your model. So if you have 10 structures, you'll have 10 separate rows. And then for every structure, you need to resolve any of the errors and warnings before being able to continue. So if we want to continue on to the next phase, we can try, but we see that there are errors and we are not able to continue. So we have to resolve the errors. Warnings, we're able to continue, but errors we are not. So for this structure, we see that there are errors. We can take a look. We see the error in this case is the clearance compliance status is not defined, and it gives us some more information on how to resolve the issue. So we can use the clearances OK column to define the structure clearance status. So in this case, let's go ahead and say yes, this meets all our required clearances. If we wanted to, we could also say no, and the program would still let us continue. But in this case, let's go ahead and say yes. Now, when we try and click continue, we see that the line has warnings. However, we are still able to continue even if there are warnings. PRG will just ask us to make sure that we have verified all the warnings. In this case, no. So let's take a look at the warnings. We see so this structure is in a tier 3 fire threat zone. So there's no resolution, but it's just a notification of its based on its position, location. And we also see that FAA notice criteria exceeded warning that we were previously notified of. This second section here, this pole specific definition. So in this case, it's just a single pole structure, but if we had multi-poles, so like an H-frame or a subject and stub pole configuration, you would see, so each of these rows is a pole in the model. So if you had so like an H-frame or a structure and a stub pole in the same PLS-POLE model, you could go and update the reported structure number, select which one is a stub pole or not, and also edit some pole specific properties like the date intrusive record and ground line circumference. But in this case, we just have a single pole, so we're able to basically ignore this section. Then the last piece of information here is the cross-arm clearance information, and this is just information for the user to help them check their clearances. It's just pulling this information out from the pole models to help better identify clearance violations. So at this point now we're able to say that yes, we have verified all the warnings and we're okay moving on to the last step. So we'll click yes, which will take us to the last step where PRG will extract photos from PLS-CADD and PLS-POLE and also generate a dimensioned model image and a heat map, heat plot for the structure. Now it's going to ask if we've generated structure LCA files, and if you don't know what that means, click no, and PRG will tell you what to do. So it'll say in PLS-CADD, please perform this operation, line report, structure load report, lines, reports, structure loads report, and make sure that the first checkbox is checked. Once you've done that and the report finishes, just close the window and PRG will continue. Now in this process, for every structure, PRG wants this automated process. So right now I'm not touching anything. You see the warning says do not touch your mouse or keyboard. So in this phase, it will open up every structure and run through this automated process, which enables PRG to show those heat maps within the reports. And again, so there's only one structure in this report, so that only happened one time, but if you had 100 structures, that same process would happen 100 times. And at this step in the process, you have an option to review all the structures, and again, here this table would fill up if there were additional ones, and for every structure, you have the ability to selectively choose which images you want to have in the report. So let's, in this case, we'll include all the images, but if we wanted to exclude this this close-up of the top of the tower, we could click it, it would go gray, and it wouldn't show up in the reports. But for this case, let's just leave all the images in there. And now we are at the final step in the process, where all we have to do is click Generate Reports, provide a location to export the folder, and let PRG run all the reporting that it needs to do. So there are a number of reports that PRG will generate in addition to the PDF documents. So if you're part of an enterprise license, there are most likely enterprise-specific reports, and let's see. There's also a report for all the notifications, a more detailed sort of Excel view of the information in the reports, and then in this case, since it ran the FAA checks, we also have the FAA details. But let's take a look at the main output. It's the report. So we can see all the information was populated automatically, pulled from the PLS-CADD model, and placed in the report. And you can see all the photos that were generated, including that heat map showing the usage at all the different in all the different elements within the structure, the dimensioned model image, and then all of the photos that were associated with that structure. So I'll show some of these other reports. There's a report on the notifications. So you have this information to show which warnings appeared, and their resolution information. There's this PLS-CADD dump, which shows, splits out the information in the reports and provides it in a more engineer-friendly tabular format. This is something that, it provides reporting which isn't necessarily, which otherwise in PLS-CADD would, could take longer than you might hope for. So, if you had, again, 100 structures, you'd be able to come to the poles table and see every pole element in all those 100 structures. And then the crossarm table, you'd be able to see every single crossarm for all the 100 structures. You get the structure number, and then all the details, including usage, safety factors, and so on. And that concludes this tutorial on how to use the POLE report generator. If you have any questions or run into any issues as you use the program, please feel free to get in touch. The best way to contact us is by sending an email to support@powerlinereporting.com. Thank you.